Hello, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. This is Mrs. Ternitza with your new library lesson for the week. We are going to talk about a reading strategy called making inferences. Okay, let's get started. Okay, learning intention. I can use strategies to help my reading comprehension, and success is that I can complete activities that demonstrate understanding of select reading strategies. Okay, and let's quickly review. How do good readers better understand what they read? Well, we know that choosing books that are just right, remember the 5-finger rule, not too hard, not too easy, just right. Making confirming predictions when you read helps you better understand what you read. Finding words that you don't know and figuring out what they mean. Making connections, remember text to text, text to self, and text to world. And also reading aloud fluently. Is also a good way to better understand what you're reading so that you can hear yourself and you can hear yourself reading the words. Okay, so here are two very good videos about making inferences. And this will actually help you understand a little bit better what this means.
Making inferences.
Whoop, sorry guys.
Making inferences. At Grammar Songs by Melissa. What is an inference? More importantly, how can learning to make inferences make me a better reader? Let's get started. An inference is a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. Good readers infer by using what they already know, prior knowledge, along with clues in the text evidence to form an idea. Did someone say clues? Yes, Detective Waddle. Looking for clues is very important when making inferences. Let me show you. We make inferences every day in real life without even realizing it when we use the clues around us to make sense of what is happening. Stanley must be hungry. He was probably speeding. That man is scared. Tony does not like sushi. In everyday life, people combine the clues they see with their prior knowledge. Stanley always cries when he's hungry, to form an inference. Stanley is crying. He must be hungry. What inference could you make if you walked into this cafe, Detective Waddle? What clues do you see? I see party hats, I see presents, I see happy children, and I see a cake with candles. So, Detective Waddle, what inference would you make? Use the clues you see and your prior knowledge to form an idea. I know, she is having a birthday party. The clues are the hats, the presents, the friends, and the cake. My prior knowledge tells me that the birthday girl is the one who will blow out the candles. My idea or inference is that she is having a birthday party. Very good, Detective Waddle. I know how to look for clues and make inferences in real life, but how can I make inferences when I read? That is an excellent question, Detective Waddle. Let me show you. When you read, you need to use the same steps your brain automatically takes when you make an inference in real life. First, you must look for clues, but now the clues are found in the text as text evidence. Then you add what you already know, your prior knowledge, to the situation at hand. Finally, you put everything together to form an idea or make an inference. Let's read a short story and look for clues to make an inference. Shelton was getting hungry. He went to the kitchen where his mom was carefully putting long, thin noodles into a pot of boiling water. In another pot, she was heating red sauce. First, we need to look for clues in the text. What clues do you see? Well, Shelton was hungry. His mother put long, thin noodles in boiling water and heated a red sauce. Very interesting. Now we need to use what we already know, our prior knowledge. But how? Well, Shelton was hungry. When I'm hungry, I want to eat. His mother was putting long, thin noodles into boiling water. In another pot, there was red sauce, so she was cooking something for him to eat. Great idea! So now we just need to make an inference. We can form an idea based on the text evidence and our prior knowledge. I know, spaghetti. Shelton's mother is making spaghetti. It all makes sense now. Very good, I was making spaghetti. Have some. Making inferences can be quite delicious. Let's read another short story. We will look for clues and use our prior knowledge to form an idea or make an inference. Bob came home from school one day. He happily opened the cookie jar. It was empty. He saw some crumbs leading to the living room. When he entered the room, his little sister Megan looked up at him and smiled. She had crumbs all over her face. First, we need to look for clues in the text. Detective Waddle, what clues do you see? Well, the cookie jar was empty. There were crumbs leading to the living room. Megan looked at Bob and had crumbs on her face. Very good. Now we need to use what we already know, our prior knowledge. Detective Waddle? Well, when Bob came home and found the cookie jar empty, he was disappointed. I know I feel disappointed when things don't turn out the way I planned. I also know that Bob followed a trail of crumbs to the living room where his sister Megan had crumbs on her face. I know little kids make a mess when they eat something. My prior knowledge tells me that Megan was eating something. Very good. Now put your clues and prior knowledge together to form an idea or make an inference. I know! The cookie jar was empty because Megan ate all the cookies. It all makes sense. The empty jar, Megan's face, and the crumbs. Poor Bob. Bob! Megan! I'm baking some chocolate chip cookies. Hooray! Hooray! I infer we will eat cookies today. Hooray, Detective Waddle! You did a fantastic job learning to make inferences. Thank you for joining me at Grammar Songs by Melissa. Enjoy other related videos at grammarsongs.com.
Okay, guys, good job. So that kind of gives you an idea of what an inference is. Basically, you are taking what they're telling you in the story, taking what you already know about what they're telling you, and you're making an inference. So like with the spaghetti and the spaghetti sauce. So what they were telling you in the story was that they were making thin noodles and red sauce. Well, what you already know is that you cook when you're hungry. So it was probably somebody being hungry, and you already know that thin noodles and red sauce from your prior knowledge would be spaghetti. So that she'd be making spaghetti. Okay, let's listen to the next one.
Hi friends, this lesson is all about making inferences. Our learning goal for today says, I can make inferences. Inferences? What does that mean? Well, actually, we make inferences all the time. We just don't realize it. As a matter of fact, this last Saturday, my son made an inference about what we were doing for the day. See, he woke up, and I was already outside packing the car. And he said, Mama, where are we going today? I'm like, well, let's see. I need to pack an umbrella, some towels, a chair, and a bucket and a shovel. Those are all the things I'm going to put in the car, buddy. Do you know where we're going? All of a sudden, his face got really bright. He ran inside and was outside a few minutes later, ready to go. Friends, we were going to the beach. Now, how did my son know that we were going to be going to the beach? That's right, he made an inference. When you make an inference, you think about the clues that you're given from the text, or sometimes from the pictures. So you're going to look for clues like a detective. What is the author and illustrator trying to tell you? Then you're going to add that to what you already know inside your brain. And when you mix those two together, that's going to equal an inference. Just like Miles did with going to the beach. He thought about Oh, let's see. Well, an umbrella, that could be used for a couple different things. But beach towels are normally used for swimming. The beach chair is normally used for when we're outside at the beach. And of course, at that point, it was kind of like, where are we going to be going swimming? But then when he saw the shovel and the pail, which you use in the sand at the beach, he knew those are all things he had used at the beach before. So then he knew what he needed to put on. He needed to put on his bathing suit. So he took the clues that he saw, and then he added it to what he already knew. And he made an inference. We do that all the time. Can you think of any inferences you made today? Oh, good. Very cool. All right, let's practice looking for clues in a text and adding it to what we already know to make our good inference. Mom, I need a napkin. It's melting, I yelled as I licked the sticky red juice off my fingers. Let's look for some clues in there. What is the little girl eating? She said, Mom, I need a napkin. So it's something messy. And it's something that melts. Can you think of anything that's melty that you might need a napkin for? I can think of a couple things. Then she says, I yelled as I licked the sticky red juice off my fingers. What could melt that you'd be holding in your hand that might be red and juicy when it slides down? Excellent! A popsicle, of course. Yeah, a red popsicle. We use the clues and then what we already know. We already know that things that are cold melt when it's hot outside. And we know that a couple things melt that we like to eat that's delicious, like ice cream and popsicles. But the sticky red juice, oh man, I could think of a time when I had a popsicle and it was all juicy melting down my hand. I was licking my fingers before I could get to a napkin. I used all of that information to figure out that it was for sure a popsicle. I'm good at making inferences. How did you do? Oh, good job. Let's try another one. Can we please go see the elephants first? They're my favorite, I said as we walked through the gate. That's a good text. That gives us lots of clues. Let's see. So can we please go see? So we're going to go see elephants. Well, there's only a couple places we can see elephants, especially here in Florida. Where could we see elephants here in Florida? Yeah, probably the zoo. Excellent job. They're my favorite. That means you're going to be choosing between different animals, too. So can you go see the elephants first? They're my favorite. There's probably going to be lots of animals there. I know lots of animals are at the zoo. And that's one place where we could visit elephants. See how I took the clues from the text? The author didn't have to tell me we were at the zoo. I could just figure it out. Excellent job making an inference. All right, this one I'm going to let you try, and then you're going to tell me the answer. Are you ready? Seth grabbed a coat, boots, and an umbrella before heading outside. Ooh, listen for these good clues. I want to know what kind of weather it is outside, friends. Listen to the clues again. Seth grabbed a coat, boots, and an umbrella before heading outside. Okay, so let's make an inference. What do you already know? What kind of weather would there be if you had to grab all of those items? What? You're so good, friend. Yes, it's raining outside. How did you know that? Of course, because a raincoat, boots, and umbrella are all used for when it's raining outside. What would happen if you didn't have those things and you would go outside when it's raining? Yeah, you'd get all wet. No thanks. I do not want to be a soggy mess when I go to school. Let's try another one. You did fantastic. Look for the good clues. The cheese was gooey and warm. The sauce was spicy and the crust was so crunchy. Delicious. Okay, friends, I want to know what I'm eating here with this good description. What would be described like this? What do you know that has gooey cheese that's warm, sometimes a spicy sauce, and a crispy, crunchy crust? Oh, this one made me hungry too. Yeah, pizza, of course. Yum. I took what I already knew. Lots of things have gooey cheese on them. Like, at first I thought maybe it was a grilled cheese. But then I thought, oh, sauce. Well, grilled cheeses don't normally have sauce in it. And then a crunchy crust? Oh, okay. Put them all together, and I know out of all the foods that have those things in it, it's probably going to be pizza. Is your tummy rumbling or is it just mine? That was a delicious inference. Well, friend, you did excellent. Our learning goal said I can make inferences, and that's exactly what we practiced today. You took the clues from the text, and then you added it to what you already know in your brain. And that is how you make an inference. Okay, it's your turn. I want you to make an inference. I'm going to read this text to you, and then I want you to tell me where is this story taking place. Okay, and then send it to Seesaw for your teacher. Here we go. The lights went dark as the music began. I snuggled down in my seat and stared at the big screen. I popped a piece of popcorn in my mouth and took a sip of my soda. Okay, what do you think the setting is of this story? Where are they in this story? Use the clues from the text, and then think about what you already know, and then Seesaw and let me know. All right, good luck, friend.
Okay, guys, what I would like for you to do is when the lesson's over and you go into the Google Classroom, I would like you to message me in the Google Classroom and let me know what you think the setting is from what you already know about the things that were in the text. Where was that taking place at? I want to see how good you guys are at making inferences. All right, now we are going to make inferences by listening to a story. We're going to look clues from the text, we're going to think about what we already know, and we're going to make inferences. And the story is going to be called Two Bad Ants. And there is a lot of inferences that you can make in this story. There's a lot of description about what's going on, but it doesn't say exactly what it is. And I will give you some examples as we're listening to it. And then after the story, what you will do is you'll go into the Google Classroom, and I will try to put a copy of this in the Google Classroom. And then you guys can make a copy of your own and use it. And what you'll do is you'll take what you already know, plus words from the text, and what you can infer. And what I will do is I will do the first one with you as we're going through the story to kind of give you an idea of how to do it.
Two Bad Ants by Chris Van Allsburg. Genre: an animal fantasy is a story with animal characters that behave like humans. What is unusual about these ants? The news traveled swiftly through the tunnels of the ant world. A scout had returned with a remarkable discovery, a beautiful sparkling crystal. When the scout presented the crystal to the ant queen, she took a small bite, then quickly ate the entire thing. She deemed it the most delicious food she had ever tasted.
Okay, so let's think about this. This is one inference we can make. When you think about it, all right, it tells us that it's the most delicious food she had ever tasted, and that it looked like a sparkling crystal, and she took a small bite and wanted to eat the entire thing. And if you look at the picture, what do you already know about delicious food that might look like a little white crystal that would be really good to eat? What do you guys think? And think about it. It's ants. So the picture's making it look a whole lot bigger than it really does in real life. But it would be sugar, right? Because we know ants like food, and we know something that would be a small, like white crystal, would be something that would be just the size that an ant could carry and eat. So we could decide that it's sugar. So that can be your first inference that you write down on your list. All right, let's keep listening.
Nothing could make her happier than to have more, much more. The ants understood. They were eager to gather more crystals because the queen was the mother of them all. Her happiness made the whole ant nest a happy place. It was late in the day when they departed. Long shadows stretched over the entrance to the ant kingdom. One by one the insects climbed out, following the scout who had made it clear there were many crystals where the first had been found, but the journey was long and dangerous. They marched into the woods that surrounded their underground home. Dusk turned to twilight, twilight to night. The path they followed twisted and turned, every bend leading them deeper into the dark forest.
Okay, here's another place where you can make an inference. Think about it. Think about what the size of ants are. Look at that picture. Think about how big an ant actually is. And were they actually going into a forest? So think about it. Are those actually trees or are they something else? So this is a place you can make an inference.
More than once, the line of ants stopped and anxiously listened for the sounds of hungry spiders. But all they heard was the call of crickets echoing through the woods like distant thunder. Dew formed on the leaves above. Without warning, huge cold drops fell on the marching ants. A firefly passed overhead that, for an instant, lit up the woods with a blinding flash of blue-green light. At the edge of the forest stood a mountain. The ants looked up and could not see its peak. It seemed to reach right to the heavens. But they did not stop. Up the side they climbed, higher and higher.
Okay, here's another place you can make an inference. So at the edge of the forest stood a mountain. Okay, well, I already want to see if you can make an inference about what that actually is, because we know it's not a forest, because think about the size of an ant. Now it says they came to the edge of a mountain, or they stood at a mountain and they looked up, and it seemed to reach up to the heavens. Were they actually at a mountain? Remember, take what you already know and look at that picture, because that picture is going to help you connect with what you already know and what it says in the text about it being a mountain. Because again, think about how big an ant is, and what they're climbing up might look like a mountain to them, but is it really? So here's another place that you can make an inference.
The wind whistled through the cracks of the mountain's face. The ants could feel its force bending their delicate antennae. Their legs grew weak as they struggled upward. At last, they reached a ledge and crawled through a narrow tunnel. When the ants came out of the tunnel, they found themselves in a strange world. Smells they had known all their lives, smells of dirt and grass and rotting plants, had vanished. There was no more wind, and most puzzling of all, it seemed that the sky was gone. They crossed smooth, shiny surfaces, then followed the scout up a glassy, curved wall.
Okay, so let's think about it. Take a look at the picture. Here you can also make an inference. What did they actually crawl through to get inside? If you look at this picture, what do you think? What did they actually crawl through? And they said that it was a strange world. Smells they had always known were gone. And they crossed smooth, shiny surfaces. Now take a look at what's in this picture and take a look at where the ants are and what it is they're crawling over. So what inference can you make about what room are they in? Also, what inference can you make about where is it that they're crawling?
They had reached their goal. From the top of the wall they looked below to a sea of crystals. One by one the ants climbed down into the sparkling treasure.
Okay, so we figured in the beginning, Miss T helped you with that inference, that the crystals were sugar, right? So if they looked and saw a sea of crystals, that means they saw a sea or a big thing of sugar, right? And one by one the ants climbed down into the sparkling treasure. So what were they climbing into? What do you think? I want to see if you can make an inference about that also. Where were they climbing? So your clue would be that the ants climbed down into the sparkling treasure. And then that would be the clue from the text. And what you already knew was that it was sugar. And so you can infer that they're doing what? They're crawling into what? So you're going to do that for me.
Quickly, they each chose a crystal, then turned to start the journey home. There was something about this unnatural place that
And look at the picture. This right here will definitely help you with what you already know about what it is that they crawled into.
made the ants nervous. In fact, they left in such a hurry that none of them noticed the two small ants who stayed behind. Why go back? One asked the other. This place may not feel like home, but look at all these crystals. You're right, said the other. We can stay here and eat this tasty treasure every day forever. So the two ants ate crystal after crystal until they were too full to move, and fell asleep. Daylight came. The sleeping ants were unaware of changes taking place in their newfound home. A giant silver scoop hovered above them, then plunged deep into the crystals.
Okay, here's another place you can make an inference. Look at this picture. Think about what you already know about a giant silver scoop. And we already know that these crystals are sugar. So what can you infer is going on when it says a giant silver scoop hovered above them, then plunged deep into the crystals? So you should be able to tell me or write down, what can you infer is going on? Someone's doing something, right, with this giant silver scoop.
It shoveled up both ants and crystals and carried them high into the air.
Okay, so this giant silver scoop not only picked up the ants, but it also picked up the sugar. So what was going on? What was this giant silver scoop, and what was it doing?
The ants were wide awake when the scoop turned, dropping them from a frightening height. They tumbled through space in a shower of crystals and fell into a boiling brown lake. Then the giant scoop stirred violently back and forth.
Okay, so think about what you already know and look at the pictures. So it's a giant silver scoop. It scooped the sugar and the ants out of something, and then it dropped the sugar and the ants into a boiling brown lake. So look at that picture. What do you think that boiling brown lake was that the sugar and ants were dropped into? This is another place you can make an inference.
Crushing waves fell over the ants. They paddled hard to keep their tiny heads above water, but the scoop kept spinning the hot brown liquid. Around and around it went, creating a whirlpool that sucked the ants deeper and deeper. They both held their breath and finally bobbed to the surface, gasping for air and spitting mouthfuls of the terrible bitter water.
Okay, here's somewhere else that you can make an inference. So what is someone doing with this giant silver scoop? What is the boiling brown lake? And it's turning around and around, and it's terrible bitter water. So there's a clue also where you can make an inference about where these ants are.
Then the lake tilted and began to empty into a cave. The ants could hear the rushing water and felt themselves pulled toward the pitch-black hole.
Okay, here's another place you can make an inference. Look at the picture. Think about what you already know from this picture. What is that brown lake? And it says it's emptying into a cave. The rushing water and the ants, they could feel themselves being pulled towards the pitch black hole. So it's being described as a cave and a pitch black hole. So where were those ants headed? I want you to make an inference for me.
Suddenly, the cave disappeared, and the lake became calm. The ants swam to the shore and found that the lake had steep sides.
Okay, so again, here's another inference you can make. Think about, this is the brown lake. And all of a sudden, that cave disappeared. But first you have to be able to give me the inference what that cave was that they were headed towards. But it disappeared and the lake became calm. So first you have to infer what's going on in this picture and then what happened to make the cave disappear and the lake become calm. And then it said the ants swam to the shore and found that the lake had steep sides. Well, if you were able to make an inference about where the ants are and what that brown lake was, then you'll know what they are in, what the ants and the lake are inside of, and you'll know what those steep sides are. I want to see if you can make an inference about what the steep sides are.
They hurried down the walls that held back the lake. The frightened insects looked for a place to hide, worried that the giant scoop might shovel them up again. Close by they found a huge round disc with holes that could neatly hide them.
Okay, look at the picture. Think about what you already know. What could be a huge round disc that has holes in it where they could hide themselves? I want you to be able to make an inference for me.
But as soon as they had climbed inside, their hiding place was lifted, tilted, and lowered into a dark space. When the ants climbed out of the holes, they were surrounded by a strange red glow. It seemed to them that every second the temperature was rising.
Okay, so if you made an inference about what that huge round disc with holes was that they were hiding in, look at the picture here. Take what you know about this picture and take what it says about being lowered into a dark space. And then when they climbed out of the holes, there was a strange red glow, and every second the temperature was rising. So first make an inference about where they're hiding. Then you can make an inference about where they're at. Where did they end up going into?
It soon became so unbearably hot that they thought they would soon be cooked. But suddenly, the disk they were standing on rocketed upward, and the two hot ants went flying through the air.
Okay, so again, here's another place you can make an inference. So first, where were they hiding? Second, where did they end up going down into? And then third, what happened where they were at? It said suddenly the disc they were standing on rocketed upward and the two hot ants were flying through the air. So what happened to where they were hiding?
They landed near what seemed to be a fountain, a waterfall pouring from a silver tube. Both ants had a powerful thirst and longed to dip their feverish heads into the refreshing water. They quickly climbed along the tube.
Okay, look at the picture. Think about what you know. First, you also have to think about what inference did you make? What room were they in? And what would be like a fountain with waterfall pouring from a silver tube? And they wanted to put their heads in the refreshing water because remember, they were somewhere where it was really hot. So I want you to be able to also make an inference about where are they at now? What is that waterfall pouring from a silver tube?
As they got closer to the rushing water, the ants felt a cool spray. They tightly gripped the shiny surface of the fountain and slowly leaned their heads into the falling stream. But the force of the water was much too strong. The tiny insects were pulled off the fountain and plunged down into a wet, dark chamber. They landed on half-eaten fruit and other soggy things.
Okay, so think about it. If you were able to infer, to infer about where they're at when they were on the silver waterfall pouring from a silver tube. And then they got into the water, and the force of the water pulled them off the fountain and into a wet, dark chamber. So think about what room they're in and think about where they would have been pulled into from that silver tube. And now they're in a wet, dark chamber. And look at the picture and think about what you know from the picture and what room they're in. Where did they end up landing? It says they landed on half-eaten fruit and other soggy things.
Suddenly, the air was filled with loud, frightening sounds. The chamber began to spin.
So think about it. What's inside that dark chamber that would have half-eaten fruit and other soggy things? And then all of a sudden, there was loud, frightening noises, and they began to spin.
The ants were caught in a whirling storm of shredded food and stinging rain. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the noise and spinning stopped. Bruised and dizzy, the ants climbed out of the chamber. In daylight once again.
Okay, so think about it. They were in that dark chamber. There was a really loud and scary noise. And then all of a sudden it stopped and they were able to climb out. Where were they climbing out of? Make an inference. Tell me where you think they were climbing out of.
They raced through puddles and up a smooth metal wall. In the distance, they saw something comforting. 2 long, narrow holes that reminded them of the warmth and safety of their old underground home. They climbed up into the dark openings.
Okay, here's another great place you can make an inference. Look at the picture. It says they saw something comforting. These 2 long, narrow holes that reminded them of the safety of their underground home. And they climbed into the dark opening. So start making an inference. Think about where it is they crawled into.
But there was no safety inside these holes. A strange force passed through the wet ants. They were stunned senseless and blown out of the holes like bullets from a gun.
Okay, so put all of those clues together and what you know from looking at this picture and trying to figure out what this is a picture of. Okay, so they went into these holes, but a strange force passed through the wet ants. So I want you to make several inferences. First, the first inference, where is it they crawled into? The second inference, what was that strange force that passed through them and caused them to be blown out of the holes like bullets from a gun?
When they landed, the tiny insects were too exhausted to go on. They crawled into a dark corner and fell fast asleep. Night had returned when the battered ants awoke to a familiar sound. The footsteps of their fellow insects returning for more crystals. The 2 ants slipped quietly to the end of the line. They climbed the glassy wall and once again stood amid the treasure. But this time, they each chose a single crystal and followed their friends home.
So they were super lucky that the ants came back and they were able to just kind of blend in so nobody knew what they were doing.
Standing at the edge of their anthole, the 2 ants listened to the joyful sounds that came from below. They knew how grateful their mother queen would be when they gave her their crystals. At that moment, the 2 ants felt happier than they'd ever felt before. This was their home. This was their family. This was where they were meant to be.
Okay, guys, good job. So there was a lot of descriptive words in this story. It didn't tell you exactly where the ants were or exactly what they were doing, but there was so much description. And what you have to do for me is go back through there, and Miss T tried stopping at every place where you could make an inference about what was going on. And I want to see what kind of inferences you can come up with. So what you're going to do for me, when you go to your Google Classroom, you are going to listen to the story again, and you can stop it where Miss T stopped and told you where you could make some inferences. And then what I would like for you to do, you can either make your own graphic organizer. I might try to be able to put this on there so that you can print it out and use this, but it might be easier just to make your own. And what you already know, that part's going to come mostly from you looking at the pictures and what you already know about what you're looking at, what those things are. Then words from the text, and Miss T read a lot of those, so you could write down like the big silver scoop. And then what I infer. So what do you infer was that big silver scoop? Also, what you already know could be what you looking at the picture of the crystal. Words from the text was that it was a crystal. It was a food and it was really tasty. What can you infer? That it was a piece of sugar. Same thing. Most of what you already know is going to come from you looking at those pictures and knowing what it is you're looking at. Words from the text, I did read a lot of those, but you can go back through and pick those out. And then what you infer is, where are they? What are the things that they're doing? Like we said, we figured the crystal was sugar, but what was the silver scoop? What was the boiling brown water? What was the cave or the hole? What was this, the round disc where the ants hid? What is it they went down to that was really hot? What happened when they got flung into the air? What happened when they went into the two really skinny holes that they thought were like home? A strange force went through them. What was the strange force that caused them to get shot out like that, like they were two bullets? So things like that. And also in the beginning of it, when it talks about them going into a forest, well, think about how big ants are. Was that really a forest they were going into? And when they got to the edge of the forest, the mountain they said that they saw, was it really a mountain? Look at that picture and make your inference about what you think that is. And if you guys could do that, that'd be really good practice for making inferences. And then if you share it with me or turn it into me, I will take a look at it and I will let you know how you did. All right, guys. Well, I hope you had a good time doing this. I really like making inferences. It's kind of cool. But until next time, if you need me, let me know, message me. But always follow directions from your parents and your teacher. Get your schoolwork done. And I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.